Good evening, everybody. We are live. It is good to be with you guys on this Wednesday night here. This is our 35th show for Biscuits SEC Live, so we're getting into a serious groove now at this point, and should be a great show ahead of us. We got a lot to talk about. We've got the college football playoff. There's a lot of scuttle around what's going to happen with that. New seeding model. When are we going to 16 teams? A lot of comments from Greg Sankey as well. He was getting a little bit spicy in terms of the Big 12 and the ACC, a little bit sick of of what's going on with them and the talk that they have been espousing over the last couple of days. So we'll get into that. We'll talk SEC spring meetings, which is where those comments came from Greg Sankey. And then we'll also get into the SEC tournament in baseball. We'll recap that. And we'll also discuss the NCAA tournament and what we have upcoming, which I believe starts tomorrow for the NCAA tournament in the regionals. So it should be a great show. We're really looking forward to it. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Before we get into it, we are presented by the Steer Agency, and you guys can check them out at thesteeragency.com. Football is all about strategy, just like winning in business, whether you're dialing up the perfect play on Saturdays or looking to dominate in public affairs, PR, or digital marketing. You need a team that delivers results. That's where the Steer Agency comes in. They craft winning strategies that get you seen, heard, and ahead of the competition. Don't just play the game, control it. Visit thesteeragency.com today to take your brand to the next level. All right, Hammer, how we doing?
Doing well. Excited to get into it. Yeah, we actually, it's an interesting time, of course, with classes being out. Nobody's really on campus. We basically have baseball and softball left. And then thankfully the SEC does what the SEC does and gives us some stuff to talk about with the SEC spring meetings. So I'm sure you've seen, some of the comments that Sankey has made, some of the comments the coaches have made. Of course, Feinbaum is down there with the Gulf Coast in the background. So they're giving us a little bit of fodder to get us through this dead period.
Without a doubt. It's not like yesteryear where the talk is about, spring ball, what happened after spring ball going into fall camp. Now we have to talk about all these different things that are moving, whether it's the NCAA, whether it's NIL, whether it's a new playoff format. It never seems to end. So it's good for folks like us, but at the same time, I kind of just want to play some dadgum ball. I'm kind of just ready for that. So we'll get into that here in just a second. But before we do, don't forget to sign up for the Biscuits and SEC newsletter, the Morning Biscuits newsletter that is written by myself and by Hammer. And we write it in the off season on Wednesdays, and then it comes to you on Mondays and Fridays during the season. So be sure to check that out. It's everything that's happening around the SEC. It's free to sign up as well. So we hope you will join us there and keep up with everything that is going on around the best conference in America. So, all right, Hammer, let's get right into it. So the college football playoff format, it's just never ending with the college football playoff, even since the time of the BCS. We've gone from BCS to the 4-team playoff. Now we're at 12 teams. Looks like we're probably going to 16 teams here pretty soon. But before we even get to that, now, we saw the first iteration of the 12-team playoff last year. Now this year we're going into the 12-team playoff again, except now there's going to be a little tweak. And it looks like the presidents have made the decision, have all come together and decided that we're going to go to a straight seeding model this year, 12 teams again, straight seeding. So what was your reaction to this? And, what are you hearing and reading on it?
Yeah, first of all, before we even get into the straight seeding, I think you brought up a good point there. And that is we have been talking about this forever. And this just echoes the point. And I'm sure we'll get into this later with some of the comments that coaches and Sankey made at SEC meetings. But I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know when, but please, somebody take the wheel. Because frankly, whether we had still the BCS or the 4-team, like you could give me any playoff format at this point or postseason format. And as long as it was like set in stone and I knew what it was going to be and I didn't have to read 50 different articles about it, I'd be happy. Because what this has turned into is just a never ending, shouting match between coaches, conferences, whoever, right? And I don't blame anybody. I saw a good post today because even in the newsletter this morning that I wrote, I did an AI image of Greg Sankey dressed like Darth Vader or as Darth Vader. because I think that's what a lot of people see him as outside of the SEC.
And
However,
inside sometimes.
Sure. But I saw a good post from our friend Jay Crane over at Crane Company where he just said, hey, look, Sankey's not a villain. He's just looking out for his own. And by the way, so is everybody else. Tony Petitti, Brett Yormark, all those guys are looking out for their own. Sankey and Petitti just have the power. But all that aside, when it comes to the current format for this coming year, which will be for 1 year, unless they somehow, as you said, agree not to expand and go with this moving forward. But at least we know this fall there will be another 12-team playoff and there'll be straight seeding. And I said this in the newsletter this morning. I think it's a good thing because when you look back at what happened last year, nobody really believed that Boise State, for instance, was deserving of a first-round bye in a top 4 seed. Now, the way it shook out and the way that, it was set up, I think they were, meaning everybody assumed that the top 4 conference, the highest ranked power conference winners would be power conference teams. They weren't. I think Boise was deservedly ranked ahead of Clemson in last year's scenario. But again, nobody really thought that they should get a first-round bye. So I think it makes sense to do it this way, moving forward, at least for this year, and then we'll see what happens in the future. But for this year, I think they made the right call that, the 5 conference winners will still get in, but they're not guaranteed a specific slot based on that because, as we've been saying for years, regardless of the playoff system, I mean, these schedules are very, they're just non-transferable between conferences. So winning one conference versus winning another should not justify a bye week. If you want to automatically give those teams a seat at the 12-team table, that's fine, but they should not get all the way up into that top 4 echelon with a bye, is my opinion. What about you?
I think that's fair. I've got a lot of opinions on this. I think to start with, it's just we can start with the model and then talk about the rest of it. I do think that it's probably the right thing to do in terms of the seeding model is to go to a straight seeding model. I think that benefits the SEC at the end of the day. I mean, if you get in, one more team, right? If Alabama gets in last year, do we think that they're the 12th seed? They probably would have been, just because of the College Football Playoff Committee. But I don't think anybody would have thought that. I think you could have made a good argument that they should have been, the 10th seed, right? Or the 9th seed, right? So I think Ole Miss, a good example, right? If Ole Miss makes the playoff last year, South Carolina, that close, right? Both those teams that close to making it. They easily could have jumped up in some of those. Do I think South Carolina? We saw South Carolina beat Clemson, right? So we know that South Carolina could beat those guys. Clemson made the playoff. Ole Miss, do we think that Ole Miss last year could have beaten Clemson? Certainly. I definitely think they could have. So had those teams made the playoff, right on the edge, they easily could have been seeded higher if there had been a straight seeding model last year. The devil's advocate to that is Arizona State. Arizona State, I think most people in a straight seeding model last year would have argued, okay, look, Arizona State, like Texas should be ranked ahead of Arizona State. There should be, there's a couple other teams. Arizona State probably would have fallen in that 10 to 12 range, had maybe they would have gotten into the top 10, say 8 or 9. But I don't think anybody would have argued for them in the top 4. And truthfully, with hindsight, Arizona State absolutely deserved to be in the top 4. And they probably would have gotten the shade because they were in the Big 12, right? And the Big 12 is not as good as the SEC and the Big 12 is not as good as the Big 10. So, all you folks who hate on us for just loving the SEC and being SEC homers, I'm not being an SEC homer right now. I actually think that for the SEC, for the Big 10, the straight seeding model is better for them. For these other conferences, I don't think it is as good for them. However, I think there's an argument to be made that at times those schools do deserve it. Arizona State, in my opinion, the way that they played Texas and going 10-2 in the regular season, I think they probably deserve that 4th seed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where Arizona State outplayed Texas in that game.
Yeah.
Truly. I mean, it was a 4th and 15 or whatever that Ewers connected on down the middle in overtime there. But I think just overall, it's probably more. Well, I guess that kind of brings me to my next point. I think it's probably overall better to go with the straight seeding model. Again, I correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's straight seeding, but they still are guaranteed 5 spots to the conference champions. They're just not guaranteed. Remember the top 4. So like a Boise would still get in. Arizona State would have still got in. They just would have been pushed back, and the buys would have gone to a Texas. Mm-hmm. Ohio State, even maybe. I can't remember how the ranking shook out.
No, I believe they were 6, if I remember right.
But what the next question I think becomes when you go to a straight seeding model is, do you trust or even do you like the committee? Because I don't know if you saw, and we can get into more of this later, but some of the quotes coming out of SEC meetings, Florida's athletic director, Scott Strickland, said basically just like, I don't like the playoff committee. He's like, I'm not sure that's the best format. So I don't know what it is, right? If you want to go off of some ranking system like an S&P Plus or RPI like basketball does, however you want to do it. But that's, I think, something that needs to be discussed, right? If you're going to go to a straight seeding model, okay, well, what is the seeding based off of? And is it based off of the 12-person or whatever committee that nobody seems to like? Or are you going to go to something more BCS-esque, right? Where you've got a computer program that you plug a bunch of numbers into and it spits out what the rankings are. I don't know what the right answer is. I think that's something that's going to have to be discussed when you talk about a straight seeding model. If you're not going to award anything to conference, champions in terms of a seed or auto bids in a 16-team format, if you're going to do straight seeding and it's all at large, then again, what's the formula? Do you trust the committee? Is everybody okay with the committee? And we'll see. But
it's funny you say that. It made me think. Prediction here, big prediction. I think that we're going to see this whole thing come full circle, and within the next 5 years, I think we're probably going to have, maybe it may take longer, so maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see the college football playoff teams, the seeding determined by AI. We're going to go from BCS, where we were ahead of the curve, and now AI has come, and now we're going to utilize AI to seed it so that people can get mad at the computer, and they don't have to get mad at the president of the college football committee this year, who's from North Carolina or from Texas Tech or from Indiana or wherever, right? Oh, they're homer for the Big Ten. Oh, they're homer for the SEC. They're homer for their own school if they're on the edge. And, hey, AI is AI. It's a computer program, and we'll see. I don't know. That's a big, bold prediction here, but I could absolutely see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it too. Again, just because I think plenty of coaches have spoken out against the committee. Athletic directors have spoken out against it. As I said, most recently, Scott Strickland said, basically just like I don't think the committee is a good way to determine the postseason. So that's where I just go back to the point we made at the beginning, which is just like, man, for a long time, college football didn't change and was way behind the times. And it's still behind the times in a lot of respects. But now all of a sudden there's too much change and just too much change without direction, right? Again, if we're going to make changes, then fine. But let's have a consensus here on why we're doing this, who we're doing this for, and lay out a concise plan about what the changes are, when they're going to be implemented, and why, as opposed to what we have now, which is just like everybody's flying by the seat of their pants. Everybody's looking out for their own best interest, and very little actually gets done, and what little that does get done typically, is not beneficial to the sport overall. It's beneficial to, as you said, we're SEC. It's beneficial to the big dogs, which, again, ultimately, like if they have to split off, whether it's SEC, Big Ten, or the Power Four, like whatever it is, like, man, can we just get to it? Because it's exhausting as a fan, and it's especially exhausting when we get these minor tweaks and changes that diminish the product, but don't actually get to the end goal, right? Like, I don't want the SEC and the Big Ten to split off, or the Power Four. Yeah. But if that's what we're going to, let's get to it instead of doing all these tiny things along the way, acting like, we're trying to save the sanctity of the sport or whatever. If that's the ultimate, destination, because I'm just getting burnt out on all the back and forth and shouting matches and, Congress this, Congress that, or this conference says this conference says that. I mean, we just really need somebody to take control.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's kind of right now as a fan, it's, first of all, let me say this. I don't want to be super doom and gloom about this, because at the end of the day, I still love college football. I'm still going to watch college football. Josh Pate and others, in the national media have been talking about this, just about how, hey, yes, there's a lot of these changes and a lot of us are frustrated. Like, who's at the helm? Who's at the wheel? Who are these changes really for? Is it making the sport any better? And we can ask all those questions and we can have all those discussions. At the end of the day, I'm still a college football fan. I'm still a fan of watching SEC football. I'm still a fan of all the rivalries and the pageantry and everything that makes college football unique. And there still is a lot that is unique about college football. Yeah. So I want to preface that, before we get into the other side of it, which is what you're talking about. Like, I'm with you. Look, I'm a traditionalist. We grew up with College Game Day in its heyday, with Lee Corso and the headgear heyday. We grew up with the SEC on CBS. Vern Lundquist, like just the things that grew college football into what it is today. And now it feels like we're looking at almost a completely different sport. I mean, and it's changes across the board. Like we're seeing changes on the front of players being paid. We're seeing changes on the front of the transfer portal where your roster turnover. I mean, look, we cover this sport. We have trouble even knowing who's on what team by the time we get to September, by the time we kick in late August. So, there's just change after change after change that's being made. It feels like death by a thousand cuts if you're a fan. And my question, I guess, is really like, who is this for at the end of the day, right? Like, who is this really for? And to me, I think the answer is obvious. It's for the TV networks. It's for the almighty dollar. Is it really for the fans? Is it really for the players? I mean, I guess, the money, right, and being able to go to whatever school is for the players, but the fans are getting left behind. And we've talked about that a lot on the show. But the more and more we talk about it and the more we see that's coming out of all these different things that are in motion at the exact same time, it feels like the fan is really is an afterthought in all these conversations.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to answer the one part of your question there, like, is it for the fans or the players? I think you just said it's really not for the fans. And I would argue with you, it's not for the players either, because yes, they're getting paid. However, they're not getting a share of the revenue. They're not getting paid by their schools. They're getting paid by fans, outside people donating to these players, which is wonderful. The players deserve the money, but it's pardon my French, ass backwards way to get in, to get players paid is to have your fans front the money for that. And then, the other part of that for the players, the transfer portal, again, I guess, yes, you could argue that is for the benefit of the players, but I would push back on that and say, I don't think it's benefiting players. I think having one free transfer, sure, benefits guys if, coaches leave or just things don't work out. But transferring 3-4 times, like, I don't think that is actually beneficial to players.
No.
It's not beneficial to their development. It's not beneficial to, I know it's certainly an afterthought and that's fine. But, you can't graduate if you transfer to 4 different schools. Like it's not possible because you're going to be way behind on your credits. And so great, you transfer 3 times, you're a 22-year-old sophomore by your credit hours, and the NFL doesn't come calling. Well, now what do I do? So I think it's definitely for the TV networks and the power brokers. And again, like as you said, I'm a college football fan. I'm going to tune in on Saturdays no matter what. And so if this is purely, turns into a money-making thing for the networks, like ultimately I will accept that and tune in and be fine with it. But again, I would prefer to skip to the end, right? Like if that's what we're going to do, then give us the format, give us the big games. You don't want the G5 or FCF games anymore, like fine, have a G5 league, have a power conference league, and every single weekend you pay power conference teams. It's big TV, it's big money, whatever it is, but like let's get there instead of all this, again, just back and forth and posturing. And Sankey said it today, maybe we can just springboard right into the SEC spring meetings, but one of the things he said today around kind of taking a shot at the ACC and the Big 12 was because apparently, right, so the format, if you're not up to date, I detailed most of it in the newsletter. So the current college football format for this season, we just detailed, is a 12-team straight seeding format. Moving forward, we don't know what the format will be. And so all these conferences are trying to position themselves to get that. And I believe it was Sankey, or maybe it was the Big Ten, but Big Ten SEC have been meeting, and they came forward with 4 auto bids for those 2 leagues, 2 auto bids for the Big 12 and ACC, and then 1 group of 5 team. And the other format that's being thrown around is a 5 auto bid. So 4 power conference champs, the G5, and then 11 at-large bids. And when the I think Sankey, of course, and Petiti are on board with the 4-4-2-2-1 model. Apparently the SEC coaches are on board with the 5 plus 11 at large. They want more at large bids.
As do some athletic directors, including Scott Strickland at Florida and Trev Alberts at A&M, because they want to go to 9 conference games.
Right. So again, you have all these competing interests, even within the same entity, where Sankey and Petiti are saying, we want guaranteed spots. The Big 12 and the ACC are saying, that's too many guaranteed spots. And then your coaches are saying, we actually don't care about guaranteed spots because, this is the format that we prefer. So you have all these people, playing games, and the ACC and Big 12, or I think it was the Big 12, released some statement about the good of the game and whatever. And Sankey kind of fired back saying, he said, I don't lecture about the good of the game, coordinated press releases about the good of the game. I'm looking for ideas to move us forward. So kind of taking a shot there. He said something else around, apparently, I think it was the ACC and Big 12 put forth 4 bids for the SEC, 4 for the Big 10, 3 for the ACC, 3 for the Big 12. And, Sankey said, I don't think I would be at the podium if some of those ideas were adopted. So, again, we're just going back and forth. And I get it right from all sides. The ACC and the Big 12, like, they have to look out for their own. They don't want to agree to a format where they're going to only be guaranteed 2 spots when other conferences are guaranteed 4. And from Sankey's perspective, too, of course, it's like, no, we are that much better than you. We're not only going to get 1 more team in than you. Like, there's not 3 teams in your league that deserve a guaranteed spot, in his opinion, and would be mine as well. But yeah, it's just a lot of back and forth. And, again, like, even if that was the format, the 4-4-3-3, because I will admit, a lot of this stuff is cyclical, right? So the SEC and the Big 10, SEC primarily over the last 20, 25 years has been the big dog, and probably will continue to be based on geography, money, investment, etc. But it's possible that the Big 12 and the ACC step their game up and have teams legitimately at that level. So, if it's that format where they're guaranteed 3 in there, then like, am I going to love it? No, but just give me a format.
Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry for you guys out there. I know you're probably sick of hearing us talk about this, but this is what we have to talk about, right? Like, this is the big news that's out there in college football right now, and it does matter. What we have, what we end up with, matters to us fans, and what shakes out. To me, I actually like what Lane Kiffin said. Lane Kiffin said, "I want 16 teams, and I want the 16 best. Period. End of story." Because, like you said, it's cyclical. I mean, not to defend the ACC here or the Big 12, but there are years where, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and Pitt, absolutely. SMU now in the ACC, right? There are going to be years, give it 2-3 years, right? All of those schools, for the most part, are investing a lot of money into football, primarily Florida State, Miami, and Clemson, and SMU as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Pitt's not far behind him. And then things will change as well, too. Another, thing that's out there is the House settlement, which will then we'll have revenue sharing and likely going to have a cap as long as we get these state laws out of the way, which is just a whole nother rabbit hole that we don't need to go down. If you need to read about that, go sign up for the Biscuits and SEC newsletter. We wrote about that 2 weeks ago and about what all of that entails. So you can go, read about that there. But yeah, so absolutely. If I'm the ACC, right, or the Big 12 or any of these, the Big 12 has had multiple years, right? Okay, Texas Tech is investing tons of money. It looks like they're going to be around for a while. They just had the #1 portal class of this cycle. Baylor with Dave Aranda, he's had some good years, right? Kansas State every once in a while jumps up and is really good. BYU now, good. Utah in the Big 12. There are going to be years where there is 3 to 5 teams in the Big 12 that very easily could be right on the edge of that 16 teams. So to say that, and as an SEC homer here, yes, do I think that the SEC almost every year in a 16-team format has 4 teams that will deserve to be in? Yeah, I do. And I think there's probably years where it's going to be 4 to 6 even, right? However, at the end of the day, yeah, if I'm the Big 12 and I'm the ACC, I'm fighting tooth and nail because I'm like, okay, you guys think that you are so much better than us with the Big 10 and the SEC. We have these schools who, in not that, it hasn't been that long, like in recent memory, have been good enough. And there have been years where we have been good enough with 4 teams or 5 teams that would have an argument to be in a 16-team playoff. So, why wouldn't we just have, let's talk straight seeding, screw all of these auto bids, whoever's good enough, whoever the AI decides in the future, whoever Terminator decides is good enough to be in the playoff, they're in the playoff. If the College Football Playoff Committee, if that's how we keep doing it, if it's whatever the top 16 teams are, whatever they determine, they're the best teams. That's how I would do it, and I say that as an SEC homer. And I think that even as an SEC homer, you should almost be for that because it's like, hey, we do believe that we're the best and we believe that we're going to prove it every single year. So let's lace them up, let's strap it up and we'll show you. And we're going to get, by the end of the year, we will show you every year that 4 to 6 of our teams are going to be good enough to make it. And we don't need your auto bids. To hell with the auto bids. Let's scrap it and let's go to 16 straight seed and let's do it.
I love that. Yeah. And I think part of that too, if you did the straight seeding method would be, again, this is sort of a page out of the NFL's book, right? But, the NFL has conferences. They're smaller, so you play everybody twice. But then, each year you have other conferences that you play everybody from, right? So,
Yep.
If you're a Cowboys team, it's like, okay, well, your crossover this year is the AFC West, and you're going to play all 4 of those teams, whatever it is. And you can do the same in college football, right? Like I saw Brian Kelly at SEC spring meeting said we would love to do a 9-game conference schedule and a crossover game with the Big 10.
Yeah.
Which would be great. But again, you need somebody to mandate these conferences and coaches to agree to this because they're never going to do it without that. But like that would work where, okay, we're going to mandate that all the power conferences play a 9-game conference schedule. So you have 3 out-of-conference games, and we'll give you one, G5 local whatever team. So you want to play Sanford or Troy or the Citadel, whatever. Like you get one G5 team, and then your other two non-con games. One year they're going to be against the Big 12. The next year they're going to be against the Big 10. The next year they're going to be against the ACC, and you just rotate it. And again, that would be great for fans, especially, I think the one thing too we have to rethink here, especially when you expand to 16 teams, is, we'll see, how much like strength of schedule or whatever is included in this, but like there's going to be multiple 3-loss teams, maybe, probably not, but at least 3-loss teams that get in, right? And so playing these out-of-conference games, yes, there are going to be teams that get the short end of the stick and say, oh, well, your crossover with the Big Ten includes Ohio State and, whoever. That's tough versus somebody else who gets, Nebraska and Minnesota. Like, that's tough, but just deal with it, strap it up, play the game. And again, if you're in the SEC or the Big Ten, like, dude, you got 3 losses to play with. If you're a 9-3 team at the end of the year, you're probably in the top 16. And so play. And you'll get credit again, too. Like if you go like Texas this year, Texas is going to the Horseshoe week 1, and they're scared of them because they don't want to play a night game. But no, like if Texas loses that game and it's close, who's going to hold that against them at the end of the year? Yes, it's going to be a loss on their record, but let's get real. It's Texas and it's Ohio State. If Texas is 9-3 at the end of the year with a loss on the road week 1 to Ohio State, man, nobody's going to care. They're getting in. They're going to be in the top 12. They will get a seat at the table, and they damn sure would get a seat at the table in a 16-team playoff. So however you want to figure the schedule out, like let's get something that is as equitable as it can be, because I understand there's always going to be inequities when you're talking league to league, conference strength of schedule, right? Again, this is not the NFL. These are not professional athletes. There's always disparities between schedules. But as equitable as it can be would be, playing other power conferences out of conference. Everybody plays the same amount of conference games. And then from there, you can debate on, who had the stronger schedule or whose conference was stronger that year, whatever. But we'd actually have better data because you are playing more out of conference games. And at the end of the day, it's cyclical. So one year you might get screwed. The next year, guess what? You get, you get Houston and Kansas out of conference. And last year you had Penn State and Ohio State. Well, that's tough for that one year, but the next year you're better off. So it all works itself out, over time.
I heard that that Texas and Alabama are both for that, like for doing like a Big Ten challenge, Big Ten SEC challenge, if Texas's permanent opponent is Rutgers and if Alabama's permanent opponent is Northwestern. That's a lie. I just made that up. That's not true. But
it's funny because I actually saw a message board genius post about that. Did you see that? Is that what triggered it? So I think it was a Georgia message board or something that was like, if we end up doing this, they literally said that. They said, just look for Alabama to get Rutgers and Texas to get Northwestern. And, Georgia's going to get Ohio State or Penn State. Or just we're ready to get screwed by the SEC office.
Yeah. Yeah, Ohio State has said that they will do this if Mississippi State is their permanent opponent.
Yeah. So,
well, there's one more thing that we ought to talk about here, and that is the fact that at the SEC spring meeting, Sankey has also been talking about this, which is that it sounds like sooner or later, even before a new college football playoff format, the 16 teams going to that is decided, the SEC will likely make a decision on whether or not they are going to 9 conference games. He also stated that if the SEC ends up staying at 8 conference games, that he likely in the scheduling process will not be able to protect 3 rivalries. So think about Alabama, right, where you've got the third Saturday in October. You've got the Iron Bowl, and you also have to play LSU, right, which Nick Saban hated because those typically are very good teams, right, and especially now. And Auburn is coming back up with what they're doing with their roster. So good news that it sounds like we're going to make that decision soon here. I am a big proponent of going to 9 conference games. Look, let's push out the ULMs, the Akrons of the world, the others, right, that we play in these non-conference games, the Southern Misses of the world. No offense to those teams, but I love big Saturday night games in the SEC. And if we go to 9 conference games, that means we get one more of those. And for me, we talked about it at the start of the show. We've talked about it, across this show and talked about it on Biscuits and SEC for a long time. We're kind of traditionalists here, right? We came up in that era of college football that was just a classic traditional NCAA football. And now we've got all these changes swirling around. Well, this is one way that we can keep some of that tradition and just that pageantry. And what made this sport great was the rivalry games. So if we can go to 9 conference games, and that means we can protect 3 rivalries a year, and you can, have those rivalries, those permanent rivalries inside the conference, I think that is a no-brainer in my opinion. And I know that coaches can be a little bit squeamish about that because, in the SEC, we know that we beat up on each other because it's a tough conference top to bottom. But at the end of the day, again, we're going to 16 teams. Likely you've got 3 losses to play with now, which is a whole different conversation. But now you've got 3 losses to play with, likely, that you can then still make it to the 16-team playoff. And if that's the case, then let's go to 9 conference games. Let's hash it out on the field, and let's protect those rivalries so that we have great games on Saturday night on ESPN and on SEC Network and on ABC.
I agree. I'm all for the 9-game model. And I think, you're right. Like, coaches are very wary about that. And I think, but I think it would go a long way in protecting tradition and giving you those classic matchups every Saturday. But I also think for the future of, whatever college football playoff format we have, again, like, yes, as an SEC homer, do I think it diminishes the league that we only play 8 conference games? No, I don't. And when other conferences, cry and whine about that, I really don't care. Yeah. But if you're trying to, whether it's a AI computer program Terminator or a committee, like, okay, it's helpful if all of your major power players play the same number of conference games, right? So let's just up it to 9. And you still have 3 out-of-conference games to play with. So, like, even looking at the schedule this coming year or in recent years, like Alabama, I mean, they went to Wisconsin last year. They played Texas out of conference for years. They've always played big, Georgia's playing Clemson. A&M's playing Notre Dame home and home. Like, you're basically scheduling a 9th conference game by scheduling one of these teams. And so, I don't think, or I wouldn't want you to, then remove that from the schedule. But ultimately, if it came down to it, without any sort of, mandate from the powers that be to play these other leagues, like, I would be okay with adding a 9th conference game if it's going to, again, puts the SEC and all these other leagues on the same conference game, schedule. And then you still have 3 out-of-conference games to play with. So if you're worried about your overall record, it sucks, and I wouldn't be for it. But then, cancel those home and homes. Texas, don't go to Ohio State. Like, if it's that big of a deal to your coaching staff, your athletic director, whoever, then just cancel those games. And until somebody mandates it, you can play 3 cupcakes, but you're playing 9 conference games. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go to 9 conference games and let's strap them up and have some fun. So, all right, let's head on to our last segment here, but we do have a biscuit of the week. The biscuit of the week is back. No Muschamp Coach of the Week this week. We will bring that back, I promise, at some point. It's one of our favorite segments for sure. But this week we just have a biscuit of the week. So before we get to that, though, let's talk about the SEC tournament, recap that a little bit, and then get into the NCAA tournament for baseball, which it was a was a wild year in the SEC, top to bottom. The conference was extremely impressive, and that even with what happened with A&M, A&M is preseason number one. We can do half of a show on what happened there, but A&M was preseason number one, didn't even make the NCAA tournament, and yet still you had a bunch of teams. I don't know what the final number was. Was it 9 or something? Make the NCAA tournament from the SEC. And just, again, top to bottom, the league was extremely, extremely deep. And I think people thought that Vanderbilt was a very good team. I don't know that anybody was really picking them to win the SEC tournament. There was a couple people, but not many. And they make a run all the way to the end and win the SEC tournament, and then end up the number one overall seed going into the NCAA tournament. So what were your thoughts on the SEC tournament? And then we can turn our focus to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, if you want to just throw up that graphic of the SEC baseball tournament and results, because I just thought, a few interesting things to note. I mean, I thought kind of what you said, right? Like, not many people were picking Vandy. They were really hot going into the SEC tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They've definitely been on a roll as of late, but as the 4 seed, a little surprising to see them win. I think for me, kind of the whole theme of this was, A, good baseball, but B, a good amount of upsets there, right? You've got, you talk about A&M. They obviously were fighting for their postseason lives, but they beat Mississippi State 9-0. Then they beat Auburn, who's a top 8 national seed now, in the second round, and darn near beat LSU in that third round game.
With their best player having a broken hand.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. We should give a shout out to Jace Laviolette, the Aggie slugger, who took a pitch to the hand against Auburn, broke his hand, or at least a bone in his hand. Balls of steel, goes ahead and gets surgery Friday morning after the game, and then plays that night against LSU. So shout out to him. That guy's an Aggie legend, and that was cool to see. It's too bad that they came up 1 run short against LSU. But even, other upsets, right? Ole Miss, as the 7th seed, gets all the way to the title game by taking out Arkansas and then LSU in back-to-back days. Oklahoma takes out number 5 Georgia in the second round before falling to Vandy. Then Tennessee takes out number 1 Texas, and Texas's first, SEC tournament game ever. So, it was just, there was quite a bit of upsets, and it was really exciting. And again, a lot of really good baseball in it. And I think Vandy, deserved champion. They went through Oklahoma, Tennessee, and then ultimately Ole Miss to get there, and obviously earned a kind of a double bye there with the top 4 seeds. So no qualms with the Commodores getting it done and securing the number 1 overall seed. I almost feel like, barring, I'm sure like if Ole Miss had won, they wouldn't have taken the number 1 overall seed. But in my opinion, as good as the SEC is, it seems like if you're a top 4 to 5 team in the SEC during the regular season, and then you win the tournament, like, you should just be automatically given the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. By the way, I way underestimated what the SEC got in to the NCAA tournament. They got 13 teams total. Ridiculous. 13 out of 16 get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Texas, A&M, Missouri, and South Carolina, the only teams that did not get into the field. And we can get into this now, talking NCAA.
Yeah.
8 of the 13 are hosting, meaning they're in the top 16. And 6 of those 8 are in the top 6 of the top 8 seeds. So 6 of your national seeds that if they win their regional are guaranteed to host a super are in the SEC. It's Vanderbilt's number 1, Texas number 2, Arkansas number 3, Auburn number 4. I think then UNC jumps in at 5. Mm-hmm. And then you get LSU at 6, Georgia at 7. And I think it's FSU is at 8. I can't remember who the last – or no, it's Oregon State, I think. Okay. So,
right.
6 of your top 8 are in the SEC, and then they get Tennessee and Ole Miss are also hosting regionals as part of the top, 16. So just a murderer's row of teams in this league.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you, right? We just showed that graphic of what the SEC tournament looked like, top to bottom. And even those teams that didn't make it, right? Like South Carolina fell off near the end of the year, but at times they were competitive. They lost a bunch of series, but again, competitive in many of those series, at least in the middle of the season. A&M beat a bunch of teams in the field in the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, they took 2 out of 3 from LSU. They took 2 out of 3 from Tennessee. So they took 2 out of 3 from Arkansas. So you couldn't even just chalk it up to a win if you played A&M. You could chalk it up to a win if you played Missouri, unless you were Texas A&M.
Correct.
But yeah, it's extremely impressive, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch all of these teams in the NCAA tournament. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the SEC can do. I mean, you even have, like, for instance, I saw people talking about this. So you have Florida, right, not hosting a regional, but God, that team is dangerous, man. Coastal Carolina gets Florida in their regional, and Florida's kind of looking around at that regional. They have Coastal Carolina, who's the host. They have East Carolina in that one, and you have Fairfield. Now, I don't know a ton about those teams, to be frank with you, but I know about Florida. I know what Florida did this year. I know Florida's history, and I know that if I'm any of those teams looking at that, when I was looking at my draw that I got for the regional, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, Kevin O'Sullivan coming in here with the Florida Gators, and they've gotten hot from people kind of left them for dead. Looked like they just had, okay, this was just a fluke year. Everything was going wrong. They were having an A&M type of year. They were kind of paralleling each other for a while there. And then it went A&M started going up, Florida started going up, and then A&M faltered, and Florida just kept going. And so I'm looking at Florida like, hey, if there's a team that isn't hosting from the SEC that can make a run, the Florida Gators might be it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, and even, again, like, yeah, we can roll through the rest here because Alabama's a 2 seed in the Hattiesburg. So Southern Miss regional. Oklahoma, another 2 seed. They're going to Chapel Hill. That'll be tough. I mean, UNC is very good. I'm not holding out too much hope for the Sooners there, but I think they'll hold their own. I would estimate. And then the last 2 that made it in, Mississippi State and Kentucky. So State's a 3 seed heading to Tallahassee, and Kentucky's a 3 seed heading to Clemson. And both of those teams are kind of dangerous. I mean, Clemson, pretty wishy-washy, for y'all that don't know, our mom went to Clemson. We've got some buddies that went there. So keep up with that program more so than Southern Miss or Coastal Carolina. And Clemson was really, really, really good early and then kind of fell off. And then they seem like they're finding it. They went to the ACC title game before getting beat. But, got smoked by the Tar Heels. But so that they seem to be in pretty good form. That's a really good team. But, Mississippi State's dangerous. Kentucky can be dangerous. And then Mississippi State, I just don't really know what to think about them with, they've been better since they fired Lamonis. So you just never know.
Impressive they even made the tournament, frankly. I mean, you fired your coach midseason and still make the tournament, right? They got a little bit hot. So, it's going to be a lot of fun baseball being played. Tennessee's an interesting one too, right? They've got the talent to win it. They've just had this kind of up and down season, right? But baseball is a streaky game. It's all about getting hot at the right time. So, hey, win your regional and then see what happens from there, right? Just win in advance, right? So it's going to be a lot of fun. All right. It looks like there might be a hailstorm blowing in here. So I may need to go move my car. So let's run here to the biscuit of the week. And maybe we'll get out of here a couple minutes early. So we normally give you free football here at Biscuits SEC, but tonight I might have to cut it a little bit short. So, all right, our biscuit of the week this week. Hammer, I will let you take it away because this one was yours.
Yeah, so we're going back to the well for our longtime Biscuits and SEC fans. I featured this restaurant, I want to say back in January, maybe February. But I went to a different location this weekend. I was in Boulder for a Memorial Day 10K. I did not run, but was supporting some friends and family that did. So I still ate like I ran, and we went to Lucille's Cajun Cafe. They have a restaurant location in Boulder. So I was in Prime Country, Coach Prime, checking in on the Buffs program. And yeah, I got the same. It's called the Cajun breakfast. It's 2 eggs, grits, and red beans with like ham hock meat. And everything they serve basically comes with this giant biscuit as the side, or as one of the sides. So, yeah, I slathered that thing in butter, put some jam on it, dunked it in some red beans, and went to town. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that looks incredible. That biscuit right there. I mean, that thing is huge.
Huge. Yeah.
I'm all for that. That place looks like it sounds like it's from New Orleans. Sounds like it's from somewhere out of Louisiana with Lucille's, and like they just picked it up and put it smack dab in the middle of Colorado Springs.
Yeah, the guy who started the restaurant was from New Orleans, so it's legitimate Cajun food. Surprisingly, up here in Colorado, but it's fantastic. So anybody who's out here or ever visiting, if you want some Cajun food. There's a couple, I think 3 or 4 locations around the Fort Collins, Boulder, Denver area, and I would highly recommend it.
Awesome. Well, that should do it for us this week. We're going to get out of here just a little bit early so that I can go move my car so I don't get insurance damage or have to file a claim with insurance for hail damage. But before we get out of here, if you have a biscuit of the week, if you have a nomination from your area, biscuits that you have made. We've featured friends of the program before on here and with their biscuits that they have made homemade, as well as folks who have gone into town for their favorite biscuit, wherever you might be throughout the SEC footprint. And also, Hammer has been eating his biscuits in Colorado. So if you guys are on vacation and find a great biscuit spot that, has some Southern ties, then we're happy to feature him here on the show. So you can DM us at Biscuits and SEC. Across platforms. So X Biscuits and SEC. You can check us out on Instagram as well at Biscuits and SEC, or you can shoot us an email, contact@biscuitsandsec.com. And then also be sure to sign up again for the Biscuits and SEC newsletter, the Morning Biscuits newsletter. And that is written by myself and Hammer on Wednesdays. It comes to your inbox. So this morning, Hammer wrote it. And that's in the off season on Wednesdays. And then once the season starts and we've got a whole lot more football news coming in, then it'll be on Mondays and Fridays during the football season. So it's free to sign up. Just go to biscuitsandsec.com/newsletter to sign up. All the happenings around the SEC, all the news and notes that you need to know about what is happening in the best conference in America. So thank you to the guys from the Steer Agency for sponsoring this. And we will see you guys next week for Hammer. I am Boss Man. Don't forget SEC After Dark tomorrow as well. We will be on there 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central on the same channels for the most part that you can watch here. That will be on Stephen Willis's Twitter as well as our Instagram channel too. So be sure to tune in then. Now for Boss Man, that's Hammer. We will see you guys next week. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Appreciate y'all.